Hi there, welcome back. It's been quite some time since my last art session and I really enjoy making these videos. So here we are again. Lately I've been getting back into Minecraft and I'm considering making some gameplay videos in the future, but for now I am in desperate need of an art practice. I haven't made a full illustration in a long time, mainly because I'm drawing content for short form videos that you may have seen here on this channel or on my new TikTok account, which is at @strawberryinhell. So to practice art and link it with my current interest, I decided to draw my Minecraft skin, which is this really cute dark academia cherry girl. I just remember searching for so long for a good skin to use, and then I found this one and I was so happy with it. As for the drawing process, in the last art session video, I explained in great detail how much I suck at line art. So this time around, I really wanted to practice that and get a little fancy with it. And as you can see here, I struggled a lot with the hair. I'm not used to drawing long hair, especially if it's supposed to be flowing in the air, so this was definitely a much needed practice for me. I kept adding little strands of hair and redoing a lot of the lines that I just didn't like the placement of. Moving on to the face, it went surprisingly smooth. Well, except for the eye, but overall, I think it went better than most of my previous illustrations. And I think it's because the sketch was quite clear for me, since I took so long to make it. And actually, since we're talking about the sketch, I legit could not make a sketch for the life of me. I drew at least 5 different concepts and poses for this video, and I hated all of them. But that was until I found a reference picture that I liked, so I changed some things to match the concept that I had in mind, and I went along with it. But we will talk about that concept a bit later on. For her top, I played a lot with line placement to indicate the folds and wrinkles, so that later on it will become a good base for me when I color and shade. This is also a part of the line art practice, and it made me understand more about the folds as I drew them, instead of just analyzing images like I usually do. Then the skirt, which was pretty straightforward, but it felt like my hand wasn't connected to me, because I just kept intending to do a straight line, and then it just goes terribly, which made me wonder how I did the previous lines, and somehow struggled now, but I guess progress is never linear. And as for her socks, which I don't even know if they're supposed to be socks or leg warmers, and I only realized after making the sketch that they're supposed to be at knee length, but I just could not get them to look good, so I just went with this short version. Now for the odd bit, which is the grass block that she's supposed to be holding. See, I wanted to add something that can clearly indicate to the viewer that this illustration is Minecraft related, because there's really no way to get that across if I just draw the character on her own. And I think this was the most basic idea I could have picked, but hey, it's done now. Basically, the vision is that this is a more realistic version of a Minecraft world, so the grass isn't super blocky, but you can still notice its rough shape. And now it's not really that clear what I'm doing, but I promise it'll look a lot clearer in just a few seconds. I'm basically just coloring the lines of each part of the drawing, but since the background is white, it all looks like different shades of the same color. But once I change the background to another color, you can clearly see the difference between each one. And right at the end of this session, I just cleaned up some lines that I didn't like, and then we're moving on to the second session. The day before this session, I had just gotten sick, which I know is something I say a lot, but unfortunately, it do be like that sometimes. But when I started this session, I was still not doing too well, so I just took things slowly and used this session as some cool down therapy for my soul, I really enjoyed the process of base coloring because it's not stressful, and there's not much to say here since I'm literally just coloring, but I will say that it looks like I'm coloring all over the place like an idiot. However, this is only to save time. I just know in my mind that I'm coloring over some places, so there's no point in erasing that bit because it's going to be covered up by a higher layer. Then we move on to shading. The first thing I shaded was the skirt since it wasn't that difficult. I knew going into this that the hair was going to be the most annoying part, so I left it for the final session and worked on the clothes for now. Here I'm not really following any rule of shading. The only thing I have in mind is that I just want to showcase where the folds are on the skirt, while taking into consideration my light source, which is coming from the top left. And like I previously said with the top line art, it gave me a good base to shade, since now I have a clear idea of where the lights and shadows are going to be located at. The material here is obviously going to be much softer than the skirt, so the shading isn't as harsh and the colors blend nicely together. And also at the end, I just went in circular motions with a light shade to give the sweater a bit of a fluffy look to it. And the leg warmers, in theory, were supposed to be just like the sweater, but something is kind of off about them. I don't know if the shadows were just too dark, but it just doesn't look right to me. And the shoes were annoying as well. And I just looked at them mid-shading and I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing right now? So I redid them a bunch of times until it looked decent, I guess. I had a little time left, so I started on the shading of her face, and it's always hard to pick a style of shading, but since I was already using the watercolor brush and using a blended art style for the rest of the drawing, I picked that for the face as well. And I've been recently doing the lips like this, where the top lip is more defined, and then using an airbrush for the lower lip, and I think it's so cute because it gives a really soft and girly vibe. Now onto the final session. I finished shading her hands and legs with the same colors as the face to make it all coherent, and then I finished her eye, which then left the grass block and the most dreaded part, which is the hair. Oh my god. It takes up most of the drawing, so I had to do it good, and I had a very questionable journey with it, I'll say that. Look, the bangs are alright since I've already lined each strand of hair. The problem is the shading for her two ponytails, because I literally have no idea how to locate hair strands and how to understand the logic of the flow of the hair. So I just kept adding more and more shading and I just hoped for the best. And maybe 2000 lines later it looked alright, but I don't know yet. And later on when you see the highlights, I think I picked a very light color for them. And in some ways it was good, but it also gave a very harsh contrast between it and the shadows, which made it seem like either the shadows were too dark or the lights were too light. So one problem turned into two. I was literally just looking at the hair and convincing myself that just a few more hair strands are gonna fix it. Like, yeah, I already did 2000, but maybe, just maybe, 1000 more are gonna make it better. Yeah, I knew there was no going back from this. I was already deep into this mess, so I just accepted that this is what I did, and I just moved on, because there's no way I'm gonna redo her entire hair. Also, I did the cherry on her top, which was originally outlined if you noticed that, but I just didn't like it, so I made it seem like it was embroidered, and I think it was alright. Now for the final and the weirdest part, which is the grass block. It was interesting, to say the least. Nothing in my art journey has prepared me for this, so I didn't have any high expectations, and you shouldn't either. This was basically a single block's worth of a background, and somehow I still struggled with it. If anything, this just showcased to me that I really need to start learning environmental art, but unfortunately I already knew that. So for the time being, I'm putting my focus on character design. I don't know what gave me the confidence, honestly, after I did that mess of a grass block, but I still thought to myself that I need to do a background. And yeah, this definitely needs an explanation. At the start, I wanted to make a full background, okay? And then soon enough, I was like, who do I think I am? There is literally no way I can do that, and it's not even necessary for this piece, since the whole point of the illustration is the character, which is my Minecraft skin. So thankfully, I went back to my senses and I started doing something simple. I added some clouds in the background and then one block underneath her, but that kind of made it seem like she's gonna fall, so I thought, let's just add a few more, that's definitely gonna fix this. And then it looked like she was doing a parkour map, which then begs the question, why is she holding a grass block while doing parkour? It was just not going well, so I went with the previous one block idea. But this time around, I wanted to make it seem like the background was a pop-up window of Minecraft. And yeah, that also didn't look too good. So afterwards, I added some lights and my signature, and then I had to think about this whole window idea for a bit. And thankfully, I decided that the simple background looked much better. So here are some close-up shots as usual. You don't need to look at her hair, okay? You'll just give yourself a headache, I promise. And here is my skin alongside the illustration. Overall, I think it looked alright. It was definitely apparent that I haven't drawn something in a long time. But hey, it's never too late to get back into the swing of things, I'm just happy that I finished an illustration and it looked decent, because I'm not really used to making full body illustrations. So I definitely think that this was a really fun practice, and if you play Minecraft as well, I would recommend that you try this out, because there's only so much detail you can add in your Minecraft skin, which then gives you the creativity to interpret the skin as whatever you like it to be. So yeah, that is it for this video. Thank you for watching and stay hellish.